It's Tuesday afternoon, it's 4 p.m. in Central Europe, and it's Space Cafe Web Talk time. Our Space Cafe Web Talk, 33 minutes with Simonetta Di Pippo on a very special day, on International Women's Day, will begin soon. But first of all, let me cheer, let me show my respect to all the women, and I would say the other 3.4 billion humans on this planet. Our special shout out to the wonderful women in our team, to Anna, Annie, Angela, Banu, Chiara, Claudia, Elena, Emma, Jessica, Christina, Laura, Lynette, Rika, Victoria, and Yvette. Thank you very much. Thank you all of you for joining us for our talk today about the International Women's Day 2022, a conversation on women in space. As always, we appreciate your participation and ongoing feedback. You all know that SpaceWatch.Global is a Europe-based online platform for information in and about space and new space activities in a geopolitical context. And usually we have another slide for you prepared, and here it is. So I would like to thank all our private and corporate supporters that showed their commitment to keeping our independent journalism alive. So we really appreciate that. I know many of you are already familiar with our website, our bi-weekly daily newsletters, and the Space Cafe podcast. The last one features Urs Ganze, a super nerd on space, on how to build your spacecraft. And just give it a listen, it's really worth. For all of our fans of audio content, we have new episodes in the Space Cafe radio. We also keep our fan shop open online for you to support us actively and become a real space watcher. If you have missed any of our previous web talks, we have an archive available on our website in the events section and on YouTube. So, last week I talked about my own excitement whenever I can introduce the guest to my show. This does not change today, especially as my guest is one of the role models the sector needs. We had her last year in our Space Cafe podcast, and I'm now very, very proud and honored to have her back in my Space Cafe. And with that, a very warm welcome, Simonetta Di Pippo. And Simonetta, for just a few that does not know you, is the director of UNOOSA, the United Nations Office for Outer Space Affairs in Vienna, and maintains the responsibility for the office management and administration, provides strategic guidance to its work, and ensures that it is implemented in accordance with the mandate of the General Assembly, COPUOS, the Committee of the Peaceful Use of Outer Space, and the established policies of the UN. She develops the work program of the office and ensures the office efficiency, transparency, and accountability. And the director also manages the peaceful uses of outer space programs. In her career, Simonetta has been active in bridging the gender gap in STEM and the space sector. And that's super impressive, she was knighted by the President of the Italian Republic in 2006, and in 2008, the IAF, the International Astronomical Union, assigned the name dipippo to asteroid 21887 in recognition of her efforts in space exploration. In 2009, she co-founded Women in Aerospace Europe, and with that also a greeting to Claudia Kessler, who is in the room. And in 2017, she became the UN International Gender Champion. Simonetta, welcome again. I keep your impressive bio as short as possible. Okay, so if we start to talk with the title, if we start our talk with the title International Women's Day 2022, a conversation on women in space, I think we say out of 600 astronauts, 10% are women, according to Wikipedia. That means about 60, that's it. So I think we could stop here, but is that our current reality? And does the fact that you hold such an important exposed position means that we can assume gender diversity is no longer an issue?
Well, first of all, allow me to say that I'm very honored to be with you today. It's a special day, but I hope that at least that's my my approach, to try to have the same, let's say, looking at the situation of gender equality and a lot of other issues, I have to say, every single day of my life, which is not only celebrating this important day, but always having the same approach. Now, on the question specifically, we made a lot, we collectively made a lot of improvement in the way women are treated at least in the aerospace sector, and on the number of women who are really present, work, contribute to develop important space missions, and also more and more in leadership positions. However, the figures that you just presented are a clear sign that we are far away from having reached any balanced representation in the workforce. And in particular, when you talk about leadership position, it's crystal clear that we are really far away. If you look at the head of space agencies around the world, well, just few are female. If you consider all the space agencies and the space offices in the world. And the more we increase the number of countries dealing with space activities and creating space offices or space agencies, well, the percentage, instead of increasing, diminishes, because the number of space agencies is increases, and at the same time, even if you have few more female here and there, is still a very low percentage. How can I say? The point is that you mentioned that we, together with Claudia Kessler, we created back in 2009 Women in Aerospace Europe, which is in a way federated with other sister organizations like we in the United States, in Canada, in Africa, etc. The goal is really interesting. So trying to bring the youngest in contact with mentors, with senior experts in the field, trying to help the youngest, let's say, women to find their own path in the aerospace environment. However, it's really an issue, the fact that sometimes the social environment and the working environment in different situations, in different countries, from different aspects, we are still far away of having the right mindset. We collectively, I'm not saying who is not with the right mindset. I mean, I'm saying collectively, we don't have the right mindset. But at the same time, we know that the more we go ahead, the more space economy is developing or blooming, the more you have players entering into the field of space activities, the more we will need talented people. And we cannot afford this challenge without using all the best minds we have, without making any difference between men and women, just selecting the best minds, the most talented people. That's the only way in which we can try to tackle all the challenges, all the issues that we have to face as humanity. I'm talking about the climate crisis, how space can help for that, long-term sustainability of other space activities, how to preserve space as a global common for future generations, you name them. We do need all the best in the team.
Before we go into the how we can achieve that, I mean, I talked about your very impressive or bio. And let me ask a personal question. Did you have to deal with any gender discrimination in your own career? And whether you think that the space sector is representative of diversity or not? I think the second part you alluded to already. So, but what is your own experience in the sector?
I believe that there is no women who didn't experience, let's say, stigma, biased approach, or even discrimination. I started since the very beginning to face this kind of issues. And clearly, I have also to admit that the more I was going ahead with my career, the less it was true, because clearly when you get higher in certain positions, then the specific events that you can strictly relate to discrimination are going down, and you get some other type of political issues or things like that, which is part of the game. Now, it didn't change in reality. When I moved from a country, so from Italy to the European Space Agency, well, I discovered that the issues I had at national level were more or less the same at regional level. And that's also one of the reasons why, together with Claudia, we decided to create this association, which was not for us. We were already quite in a very good position, both of us, but was more to create a platform for the others to exchange views, to learn about best practices, lesson learned, just to try to speed up the process for these younger ladies to find their own career path or to build their own career path. Well, it's really a difficult journey, but it's also true that if you are committed, if you are really, I want to say reliable, but really convinced that what you're doing is what you have to do, which is my case, because what is important for me is not necessarily the result per se of what I do, but the impact, the positive impact of what I'm doing on others. That's the main reward I have. And that's also the reason why probably I kept my passion more or less the same as it was 25 years ago when I started, which is good, because you wake up every morning with the feeling that you're doing something good, and with the really the desire, you are keen to do a lot every single day and spend all your energies in this field, because it's bringing some added value to others in the world. So it's really interesting. And with that, I mean, with this in mind, this can also help you to overcome or to, let's say, put aside when you experience something that is not necessarily positive. This should not stop us. And in reality, it didn't stop me, but it's not as easy as it may sound sometimes. One point I want to underline, not necessarily you can encounter issues in terms of, recognition of your role and a lot of other things only from men, because in the 50% of the population, so men, you can find a lot of collaborative people who trust you, who support you, and people who are not supportive and they don't trust you. But the same happens in the other 50% of the population. So the let's say the female population, because sometimes I have to say, I also experience some form of this discrimination or strange attitudes, let's put it like that, in a diplomatic manner, also from the female component, which sometimes means that, women are perceived, or in the mind, average minds, you have that women have to be open, inclusive, and even emotional, and so being able to put everyone at the same table and trying always to find a solution, smiling. But sometimes when you have a difficult situation, a disaster to manage, a crisis to manage, yes, you listen to everyone, but then you have to take your decision because you are the liable one, you are the director, you are the responsible one in front of your boss, in my case, the Secretary General right now, but also in front of everyone in the world. So you need to take actions. And when you do that, well, if you are a man, you are considered the best manager in the world. If you are a woman, you are, if you are lucky, assertive. Otherwise, you may be considered aggressive. So it's a question of perception, and I'm fine with that. I'm used to that, but it's one of the issues that probably we have to solve for the women of next generation.
The second part of my question was where do we stand or in terms of diversity in the space sector? And it seems that there is a way to go to be as diverse and equal as
Yes.
it could be. So what is needed? What can be done?
Well, the main issue, the more I study the situation and the statistics, the more I see that while we have to focus on experts already, so young ladies who already graduated or ready to, close to be graduated, is not enough. Then I started to focus on high level, high schools. Not enough, because a lot of studies show that kids are really interested in STEM fields, and girls start to differentiate or let's say distance themselves from STEM fields when they reach 11, 12. And this is probably due to the social environment, what they see on TV, the type of messages that they receive, because, you know, STEM education is seen as very difficult. Women cannot do that. I mean, a lot of recurrent bias. And so a lot of studies show that area, that period in the life of kids is really important to decide what they want to do for the future. And so that's the reason why at the UN, the Office for Outer Space Affairs, I recently started a project called Kids Reaching Stars, because yeah, we have space for women. We have a lot of other projects. The Association Women in Aerospace Europe is already looking at experts, so graduated people. But kids are really probably need to be our focus, because it's that moment in which girls can be helped in understanding that they can do whatever they like if they want to, if they are committed, and if they want to follow that kind of career. And so Kids Reaching Stars is also quite close to my heart. There are 5 sub-projects. 2 of them are particularly interesting. One is called Astro Girls, so it's focusing on girls of that age. And another one is instead devoted to kids with disabilities, because this is another diversity topic that is very close to my heart. I did a lot in the last few years at the Office for Outer Space Affairs, and you may have situations where you have different elements of diversity in a single individual, and so everything has to be seen in a holistic manner. So Kids Reaching Stars is really quite a good project, and I hope that it will be supported by member states more and more.
Wasn't there a program, and Dwayne points that out here, wasn't there a program, Space for Women, at UNOOSA over the last years? And Is it right that the funding is stopped for that?
Yeah, Space for Women is composed by several pillars.
Okay.
One pillar is capacity building. And so what we do is usually to organize expert meetings with the support of member states. So that part is safe, because last year we had a very interesting expert meeting in Dubai, and it was co-organized together with the Brazilian government and the UAE government. Even the Brazilian Minister for Science was with me at the event. This year we have South Korea hosting, and next year we'll have Canada, and in particular the Canadian Space Agency. So that part is safe because we have 2 additional member states in the pipeline which offered to host this expert meeting, and also supporting financially that kind of activity. We will maintain the website. We have been able to find a solution for the website. However, the mentoring part requires a lot of time from the side of the people involved. And the people who are working in the Office for Outer Space Affairs on this project need to be covered, I mean, their salaries. And currently, we don't have contribution from member states on a voluntary basis to cover that part. So it was really, I've been thinking a lot, several months now, how to try to manage, but the only solution was to announce that we had to put on hold the mentoring side, hoping, and we have some discussions with member states, at least few of them, hoping that we can collect some money to restart that part of the project. So overall, Space for Women is still alive. We didn't cancel anything. We continue with the experts meeting. We continue with the website. We put on hold the networking and mentoring side, and I hope to be able to restart it the sooner the better.
Great, thank you very much. Coming back to another topic, commercial spaceflight, crewed or just payload is open and becoming more frequent. So what new opportunities do you see for this next generation of young women just starting their journeys? And we have also a question about Black Asian women are here in the chat. So maybe you can give us this overarching view on that.
Well, okay, on one side we have, you know, the commercial development and the fact that in particular in the United States, but also in other countries now starting, there is this, you know, the understanding that when you have mature technologies, then you can more easily develop some interesting applications, right, of the technologies you have. And that's the case with also some creative additional ideas, like the case of SpaceX or Blue Origin. But, you know, what we have been witnessing right now is, on one side, the fact that these companies are serving the space station or doing other things, thanks also to a strong support from the government, for their government. I mean, because even if they are putting a lot of money from a private perspective, I mean, so private supporters, in reality, the government is really providing contracts and perspectives, etc. If we look at the tourism side, so the fact that you have these suborbital flights and looking at the Earth from above, etc. Well, I believe this is quite interesting because they are acting like trailblazers. It's true that most of the people, all the people traveling are rich. and they are the ones who can afford to fly. But it's also true that this is just the beginning. And it's like when the aviation era started, it's more or less. I mean, you had just few examples of people flying and then now taking a plane, catching a plane and going on the other side of the globe is, you know, something that you can do even with a cheap ticket, right? And so I see the same. It's a sort of a parallelism with the aviation era, a little bit different. So we have to wait for a few years more until it becomes more affordable for an increasing number of people. And I'm very positive about the fact that more and more people go to space, because this is a way also for all these individuals to understand how important space is for the kind of benefits that space can bring on Earth, how space can be used or is used every single day by all of us, and how space improves the quality of life on Earth. So it's not only the inspirational side of exploring or visiting other objects in the solar system, or learning more about the solar system and learning more about the planet, because when you look at the planet from outside, you learn a lot. But it's also the fact that space is really important, not only on the inspirational side, but also on the day-by-day, or for our day-by-day life. Women, I expect that this issue is not related today to any form of discrimination. For the time being, we have just few female who flew, and most of them are men. Probably this is linked to the fact that there are more rich men than women, but jokes apart. I don't see a big problem, to be very honest with you. It's true that the numbers in the space sector are not so high, but it's also true that in the space business, you can easily find, I don't know, panelists at a very important conference with a lot of women in the panel. If you go in other sectors, not necessarily is always the same. I'm not saying that it's always the case, because I already made the case of head of space agencies, all men. But in principle, you can find very top women in leadership position in the aerospace sector, far more than in other sectors. At least these are the statistics. So I'm quite confident. And believe me, the problem is that we should avoid any form of discrimination of any kind. That's the only way to, as I was always saying with Claudia, I'll be happy when we together can close Women in Aerospace Europe, because the moment we close Women in Aerospace Europe, it will mean that we have achieved our goal. So gender parity and balanced representation. So let's work all together for that.
I don't want to say a word against what you just mentioned, but I have a strong different opinion on the space tourism side. I mean, you mentioned that the prices will go cheaper and so on, but I mean, how cheap can it be? I mean, I think we can't compare it with a transatlantic flight for whatever 500 or 1,000 euros. That will never be the case. So, and it also means on the other side that we have to wait. We normal people have to wait until all the rich kids are done with their joy and entertainment. So, and are they representing us? I would say, I have a different opinion on that.
Well, that's good, because different opinions are always good. But you know, I believe that they are in a way going in the direction of opening up space for everyone. Not today, not tomorrow, but at a certain point, it will be natural for humankind to go in low Earth orbit, to go to the moon, to Mars and beyond, work and live there. It's for sure, not tomorrow, not the day after tomorrow, but it will happen. And it will happen depending on also on the interest of our member states, of countries, spacefaring countries who really want to not expand, but increase the knowledge of the solar system and try to live and work beyond the Earth limits. So that part is a small part of a process which is going towards the same goal. If you look at that, you probably be a little bit less.
I'm an old grumpy man, so let's talk about a few action items, because we have a huge audience today, and I'm happy and glad that you all joined us here. But we are observing at the moment that the geopolitics of the world is shifting before our eyes, and it can be really daunting. But it also is a call to actions. What are 3 things our audience can do today to support an emerging space nation or offer a partnership to a marginalized group? So what are the 3 things you have in mind?
One of the big issues that we have to deal with right now, and I believe that all member states of the UN at least are fully aware, is the need of maintaining space environment for future generations. So this implies talking about long-term sustainability of other space activities and space debris mitigation, and hoping and supporting a process in a way that all the new players start also with a responsible attitude, responsible operations in space, so that we can maintain a safe, secure, and sustainable space environment for a long period of time. This is also true not only in low Earth orbit, but also on the moon. And there is some, and if you want, also on Mars just later on. It's really, there is a need of global governance. There is need for space traffic coordination or management. There is need for more than before of international for international cooperation. So I do believe that multilateralism in this case may be the solution, but this must be coupled with the understanding that each country has to do its job and be committed to respect the long-term sustainability guidelines. So that's the first issue. The second one is the climate crisis, and space must become more relevant. It is relevant in substance, but in the decision and policy making processes, we see that space is not considered as it should be. So probably what we have to do is to advocate more, to try to increase awareness of the importance of space for the climate crisis, not only for mitigating and adapting, but also for helping science in getting better simulations, in help the models we have right now to provide more, let's say, solid forecast or expectations for the future. And one of the things that I always mention is that we have 54 essential climate variables as established, and more than half of these essential climate variables can only be monitored reliably from space. So this is just a simple element, a simple consideration that should be in all the decision-making processes. And so this is the second issue. The third one, which is also linked to climate, is the fact that the population on a global scale is increasing. We are getting short in water and food. So food and water security and the help of space on this. It may sound let's say, more limited if you compare this to the other two. Is not, because it may be the cause of potential local, regional, and even global conflicts. So, because when socially you have a big issue, a big challenge to deal with, well, it may really escalate to levels that we don't want even to think about. So it sounds a little bit more limited. Instead, it's becoming one of the most difficult challenges we have to face as humanity.
Okay, I take these 3 calls to action, and dear audience, it's for you. I mean, they might be big, but we have to start somewhere. I would like to have get through a few questions from our audience in, and I would like to start with Mark's. Mark Meyer, thanks for that. In which way could we promote UNOOSA to become the space administration? I think you have heard this question before.
Yeah, well, I believe it's the more we go ahead, the more this, I don't want to say that it's mandatory, but it would be far better to have a bigger and more structured, embedded in the system agency for space affairs in the UN. In particular, when we talk about space traffic management, global governance, space resources, long-term sustainability, you name them. Just few years ago, the situation was completely different. All these topics were there floating, but not so real, not so concrete. The number of satellites per year launched is increasing and increasing, doubling every year. Mega constellations, even the register of the objects launched into outer space, we have still the same number of people, so just one, dealing with today 2,000 satellites per year, when 3 years ago were no more than 200. So, and counting. So the idea of having a bigger organization and able to serve member states better is something that we should look at carefully. The more the public is in favor of the creation of such an entity, the more I feel member states have to start thinking about it. And so I see the role of also the permanent observers, NGOs, academia, and in general, the public in space, and the fact that the permanent observers at the Committee on the Peaceful Uses of Outer Space is really growing a lot in terms of numbers. I mean, it's more than 35% increase during my tenure. So it's quite a big improvement. And also the fact, for example, that I created this World Space Forum. Well, the private sector and all the voices can be heard, because otherwise there was no forum for this. Well, this will help, I hope, to member states to be able to get really to collect the needs, the requirements, and the voices of everyone, in particular from the public, because space is part of us. As without space, we couldn't live so well. So and we have to tackle this issue all together.
Good. There are two questions I would like to ask from our audience, or before we have to come to an end, and our production team is waving their flags already. So the first one is from Veronique Claudet. Hope I pronounce it correctly. What is your style as a woman to resolve conflicts that escalate in outer space negotiations?
One of the things that I always do is try to understand what the counterpart is saying, because sometimes what is said with words, it doesn't match with the real meaning. So you need to know your counterpart, you need to know the culture, you need to understand the culture, you need to know the background also from a technical perspective, and you have to propose something that in a way is a win-win situation for all the participants. You need to put on the table the best possible solution or best possible compromise. In order to do that, you need to put yourself in the shoes of the others. This is not easy because it requires a lot of knowledge in terms also of social understanding and the way in which different countries speak. It's really the same concept can be presented in a very different manner from different delegations. And usually it works. It's not easy. Sometimes you have to be very, just in listening mode. In the other cases, you need to explain in detail why certain things cannot be done. Usually I succeed, which means that probably the fact that I really listen and I really try to understand what the counterpart wants or is obliged to ask may help for the negotiation.
Yeah, I see your point, and it's interesting to see if someone is shooting down a satellite, how you can stay calm and put yourself on the other side. But I think that are the limits, or that are the extremes that you might be in the negotiations. So the last question is from Daniel Turcotte, and he is framing that quite well, what we discussed about. And he asks, I'm curious to know your vision about how you see the place of women in space development activities 10 years from now. And I ask this question as the last because I hope there is a positive outcome.
Yeah. Absolutely. We always need to be positive and always look at the positive side of the medal. Again, I really believe, being a woman and with 35 years of experience on my shoulders, what counts is the ability to select the best talents. And with no bias, and just looking at the team that you have to put together. If you do that, if everyone is able to do that, there are a lot of very top level women, like we have a lot of top level men. So it's not a question that we are missing women with the skills and the knowledge we need. It's just a question sometimes there is a bias in the selection process. So if we solve that and we look at merit and we look at the best talented people, I believe we can make it. In 10 years from now, I hope, as I said before, that we can close Women in Aerospace Europe, not because we don't like it, but because probably, hopefully, it's not needed anymore.
Great. Thank you very much, Simonetta, for your time and for this wonderful talk on this very special day. And I'm giving back to the woman that created or was a co-creator of SDG 18. And Chiara, you have heard it. Your call to action, keep it going. So over to you.
Thank you very much. And a huge thank you to you, Simonetta, for this great conversation. It was really nice to listen in. It was very inspiring. Before we finish for today, I would like to go over our next events that are coming up. So on the 10th of March this week at 6:30 a.m., which is early for us in Europe, I know, we have our Space Cafe Australia by Annie Hanmere, but it's going to be really great. Annie will be joined by Bryony Sturgis, and they will be talking about space and government. Then on the 15th of March, we have our 33 minutes with Dr. Andreas Wittmer on the topic of what can space and space regulation learn from the aviation sector. On the 21st of March, we have our Space Cafe Black Ops, which is hosted by the wonderful Dr. Emma Gatti, and she will be joined by Bled and Bowen. And then on the 22nd of March, which will be our 100th Space Cafe, it will be at 33 minutes with Josef Aschbacher, the DG of the European Space Agency, on ambitions for the future of Europe in space, discussing the Agenda 2025. On the 23rd and the 24th of March, we have the Impulse 22, the Space Outreach Conference. And then on the 24th, we have our next Space Law Breakfast with Stephen Freeland on the themes of cooperation and humanity. And then on the 25th of March, we have our next Space Cafe Germany with our guest host, Markus Moslechner, who will be talking with Dr. Ernst Pfeiffer. And this will, of course, be in German. All events are going to be online on Eventbrite. And as always, we'd really love to hear your feedback. So please check in with us on Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn. Don't forget to sign up to our daily and our bi-weekly newsletters. And if you want to treat yourselves to something special, become a Space Watcher today or help us out in the supporter program. Again, a huge thank you to you, Simonetta, for the inspiring talk and for being our guest. And a big thanks to the entire team behind the scenes for doing this great job week in and week out. I hope that you all stay safe and stay healthy. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for being so engaged in the Q&A and in the chat and for posting so many great questions. I hope to see you all in the next weeks. And in the meantime, don't forget to visit our website and follow us on social media. And don't forget,
become a space watcher.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Simonetta. All the best. Ciao.